I want to bring in now Derek Muller. He's a professor at the University of Iowa College of Law. Derek, obviously, President Trump, we're already hearing from. He and his team are mounting a major legal battle. We understand that he does not intend to concede, but rather is now trying to fight these election results in the court. So walk us through the president's strategy. What approach is he taking, and is it likely going to yield the results that he's hoping for?
Well, it's hard to identify what that strategy looks like right now, Lana. At this point, it's a lot of sort of bluster. It's to suggest that there's some threat happening out there and something that needs to be litigated, but it's not clear what it's going to look like. In some states, when there have been challenges to small batches of ballots, 53 votes at a time, it's hard to say that there was anything that's going to change the outcome of the election. And a lot of these states where the margin is now 20,000, 30,000 votes, fighting over a few thousand votes won't change it. And finally, as this is happening in several states, if we're looking at recounts, sometimes you can recount in one state, you can pick up 200, 300 votes, maybe turn an election. And while the Trump campaign is going to be entitled to recounts, it's not clear that any of these states are going to be within a margin where a recount is going to matter. So I think it's exceedingly long odds, and it's uncertain what this litigation will look like next week.
And last time you and I spoke, you were telling our viewers that one of the problems that the Trump legal battle has had is the lack of any evidence. So what actual evidence will the Trump campaign have to come up with in order for a judge to allow a lawsuit to move forward in any of these states?
Right. So, I think even thinking about what evidence you want is also to think about the remedy on the back end, what the campaign wants fixed. So one might be, well, we have problems with these batches of votes that should be excluded. But as you see the tallies rising, virtually all of those, except for maybe a small batch of ballots, a couple thousand in Pennsylvania, all of those votes are cast. They're counted. They're in the total. So we're not going to be fighting anymore about, was there a missing signature on this absentee ballot envelope and it should be counted, so we're excluding it. The remedy at this stage, if it's not on the recount front, is something like calling for a new election, which just doesn't happen. You need sort of pervasive and systematic evidence of fraud, which I think the campaign is having difficulty coming up with even isolated incidents of fraud. And you need that sort of on such a pervasive basis in multiple states that a court is going to say, oh, yeah, we need to have an election. And by the way, hold a new election by December 14th, which is when the presidential electors are meeting. So at this stage, there's just sort of a lot of small things that the campaign is concerned about, and really no strategy I see in terms of a remedy that's going to lead to a change in the results.
Our viewers, if you're just tuning in, are seeing crowds gathering there outside of Times Square in New York City at Black Lives Matter Plaza in front of the White House. Presumably Biden supporters jubilant at the results, but we have heard that the Trump campaign maintains that it will continue to explore any and all legal avenues. We hear them say things like all legal votes need to be counted, illegal votes shouldn't be counted. While it seems pretty obvious that that is in fact true, legal votes count, illegal votes don't count, there's a misnomer inherent in that rhetoric suggesting that there is in fact widespread fraud. Derek, can you fact check us on what we have been finding as people have looked into the question of illegal votes?
Right. So far, the campaign has, found some witnesses and filed some lawsuits in several places around the country, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, challenging some things. And occasionally it's something like, well, this batch of ballots was improperly processed. And you file the complaint. We call in an election official to ask them about what happened. The judge hears the evidence. The judge throws the claim out. Or in other places, what's happening is a little bit more of a technical matter in Pennsylvania, saying there's this batch of ballots, of provisional ballots, where the Secretary of State sort of gave a particular kind of guidance that maybe she wasn't authorized to give. So we're going to set those aside as we sort of address the legal dispute. But the notion that, that there are, sort of myriad dead voters or out-of-state voters, or that there's somehow someone who's falsely filling out ballots, just isn't true, right? Republicans won a lot of elections throughout the United States. They won a number of Senate seats. They're going to pick up a number of seats in the House. And the Trump campaign has won a lot of votes in a lot of states. In fact, in some places eclipsing his vote totals 4 years ago. So looking at sort of evidence of fraud right now is sort of at a very high level of abstract claims, a few occasional isolated incidents of some irregularities that when we inquire of them in a court of law so far have revealed nothing improper. And we're just sort of waiting to see if anything else is coming. But the longer we wait, I think, the harder it gets because, again, we're looking at December 14th when the electors meet. That's sort of the hard and fast deadline to be thinking about resolving these things. The earlier, if the president chooses to concede, the better to sort of expedite this process along.
And Derek, as you've been explaining this to us, our viewers have also been seeing not only Biden supporters coming out en masse, but also members or the President Trump supporters, a smaller group for sure, but still enthusiastic. We do know that the president enjoys a lot of support and has vowed to fight on. If you were on the president's legal team right now, how would you be advising the president in the coming days and potentially weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think presenting him the options to just say that the options really aren't there. While he's entitled to a
Derek,
recount and he can request recounts. I am here, I think. He can request a recount and make those sort of requests. But there's really no opportunity, I think, in most of these states for a recount to go through. And so if you're looking at those long odds, it's the kind of long odds that sort of John Kerry saw in 2004 in Ohio or Mitt Romney looked at in 2012 at the states he lost. If the odds are that low and marginal, then I think the best advice to the president is concede graciously and move on. And if you're so interested, which I think is probably going to put the hair up on the neck of a lot of people, think about 2024, think about potential other opportunities for the campaign. But fighting this legal battle, in my view, is a losing proposition long term.
All right, Derek Muller, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.